Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine massive armored battleships, not sailing the seas, but soaring through the skies, propelled by, well, some kind of mysterious anti-gravity force.
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking about a world where the Great War isn't fought just on land and sea, but high above the clouds. It's quite a picture, isn't it?
It really is. And today we're taking a deep dive into that fascinating world of Leviathans, the Great War. Our sources give us this, really rich tapestry of its lore, its intricate game mechanics, and the unique blend that truly sets it apart. What's fascinating here, I think, is how it marries that grand, speculative feel of steampunk with the precise strategic depth of a tactical war game.
Right. You mentioned something like Battletech in the sky.
That's a great way to think about it, yeah.
Maybe.
Battletech in the sky. Every decision can send one of these colossal airships plummeting. The stakes are high.
Okay, so our mission today is to sort of cut through the noise and give you the most important nuggets of knowledge about Leviathans. We'll explore the fantastical science that lifts these giants, the nuts and bolts of how they fight, and the alternate history that gives them context. You'll walk away with a clear understanding of what makes this game uniquely compelling, hopefully ready to command your own fleet.
Sounds like a plan.
So let's start with the very core of these magnificent machines. How exactly do these Leviathans, defy gravity? Our sources point to this mysterious substance called electroid. Tell us, what's the story there?
Yeah, Electroid. It's truly where the magic of the world begins. At the heart of every Leviathan is this, well, enigmatic substance. Our sources tell us it was first isolated by a Polish genius, Rychnowski, back in 1878.
Okay.
Initially, he actually conceived of it for a bomb,
Yeah.
which kind of paints a vivid picture of its raw power.
Oh, yeah.
But it was a Russian scientist, Vladimir Shukov, who later, in 1882, truly ignited the Great Sky Race. He discovered its incredible lifting properties.
Incredible. So electroid isn't just some fancy fuel. It dictates the very essence of these ships, their design.
Precisely, yeah. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the entire concept of a Leviathan is built around managing this electroid. You have these huge main electroid tanks for primary lift,
Right.
but then you have these crucial trim tanks, often 4 smaller ones strategically placed out near the edges. They control the vessel's attitude, its elevation.
Ah, okay. So like ballast tanks on a submarine, but for the air?
Sort of, yeah, but
Yeah.
much more dynamic. These trim tanks are vital. They compensate for internal mass shifts, like, when you spend ammunition, and they even absorb the immense recoil from firing the big guns.
Huh.
That makes these ships surprisingly stable gunnery platforms. It's not just engineering. It's like this dynamic energy core, and it's also a critical vulnerability. It forces these constant high-stakes risk-reward calculations in battle.
That makes perfect sense. But given how revolutionary this all was, how did early designers even begin to tackle such a novel concept? What do our sources say about those first attempts? Were they clumsy?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the initial designs were often quite pragmatic, almost makeshift, you could say.
Really?
Yeah, they were hastily adapted from ship screws and locomotive works. You could really see this in the early British HML Leviathan, for instance. It looks quite different from, say, the sleek French Ganymede, which drew more from cutting-edge dirigible experiments.
Interesting.
It really highlights the rapid, almost chaotic evolution of this tech. And interestingly, early air sailors even suffered from altitude sickness at the high operating feelings of these vessels.
Wow.
It's a detail that brings a very human element to this grand steampunk vision, doesn't it?
It really does. That gives us a real sense of their physical makeup. But how did different nations approach designing these aerial behemoths? Did they reflect their own character, their strategies?
Oh, absolutely. Each nation certainly had its own distinct take, deeply rooted in their perceived strengths and strategic needs. The British, for instance, with their long naval tradition, they wisely anchored cylindrical main tanks to their upper keel, with trim tanks extending widely for stability. They actually deemed the loss of protection, because they were more exposed, a worthwhile exchange for superior maneuverability and a stable firing platform.
So they favored disciplined, long-range gunnery.
Exactly. Their design choice directly translates to their in-game playstyle, a very British, steady gun line approach, but in the sky.
Okay. What of the others? The French, maybe?
Yeah, the French, they went a different route. They preferred multiple spherical main tanks affixed to the lower hull. They claimed it made for a handier design, more responsive to helm commands.
So more agile.
Exactly. It pushed players toward rapid, decisive strikes. It kind of reflects their real-world naval traditions of swift, elegant maneuvers.
Yeah.
And the Austrians, their Leviathans, ended up with that characteristic flat iron shape.
Flat iron.
Yeah, because of their high-mounted main tanks and low-deployed trim tanks.
Yeah.
It created this uniquely imposing silhouette. Internally, these ships are considerably more strongly braced than naval vessels because they don't have the water supporting them, right?
Makes sense.
Space is at a premium. The interior is often compared to a warren of twisty little passages all alike.
I can just picture the crew trying to navigate that under fire. It really highlights the brutal efficiency and the sheer peril of operating these early aerial behemoths.
Definitely.
Okay, so we understand the incredible engineering. The next crucial question for any commander is, how do they actually fight on the tabletop? How does that battle tech in the sky comparison really play out in the game mechanics?
Right. This is where the game's depth truly shines. At its core, you've got ship cards detailing each vessel's capabilities, dice, a game map with hexes, and various tokens for tracking damage and effects. Pretty standard stuff there. But the dice system itself is quite unique. You're not just rolling standard D6s. Leviathans uses this sophisticated system of color-coded D12s, green, blue, yellow, red, and black.
Color-coded D12s, how does that work?
Well, the color determines the maximum effective results you can get. So a green D12, for example, means any roll above a 4 just counts as a 4. This makes weaker weapons consistently reliable, you see.
Ah, okay. Predictable.
Exactly. Whereas a black D12 gives you the full potential of the 12-sided die, perfect for those devastating capital ship guns. This nuanced approach lets them model very granular weapon performance.
That's actually pretty clever. Simulates different power levels while still using one die type.
And how does a game turn unfold? Is it just a chaotic free-for-all, or is it more structured?
Oh, it's very structured, which is great because it allows for deep tactical planning. A game turn progresses through 6 distinct phases, always in the same order. Initiative, fire torpedoes, movement, resolve torpedoes, attack, and then cleanup.
6 phases. Okay. Yeah, this structured approach means you're always thinking several steps ahead, anticipating your opponent's moves and planning your own actions across multiple phases.
Right. And speaking of movement, these aren't just floating targets, are they? How does their movement work? Is it just simple forward marching, or is it more complex?
Oh, it's far from simple. Movement is a crucial tactical element. You're spending movement points MP for basically everything.
Yeah.
Entering a hex costs 1 MP. Changing your facing by 1 hex side costs 1 MP.
Okay.
And some ships even have an enter hexes before turn value that affects when they can execute a turn during their move. There are even specialized maneuvers like side slipping.
Side slipping.
Yeah, for 2 MP. It lets a ship move directly right or left while keeping its facing. Perfect for bringing those broadside weapons to bear without losing your forward momentum.
Nice.
Or you can do a full stop. The ship stays in its hex, but can still change facing up to 2 hex sides. Good for precise adjustments.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you lose all your engine slots, you're dead in the air. A complete sitting duck.
That level of detail on movement sounds incredibly strategic, almost like a dance. But does it risk being overwhelming? And how do these ships actually attack each other? How's damage handled?
It definitely has a learning curve, no doubt. But it's incredibly rewarding once it clicks. The core combat system is highly nuanced. Attacks are determined by firing arcs. Your ship has specific zones. Bow, stern, port, starboard turrets, side weapons where different guns can shoot from.
Standard war game stuff, yeah.
All right. Then there's range, counted in hexes. Weapons often have short and long-range capabilities, and that affects the dice you roll. When you fire, you make what's called a breach roll.
A breach roll.
Yeah. This roll involves multiple dice types, weapon dice based on the range, crew dice representing your skilled crew, location dice for where you're aiming, and a slot die for critical damage.
Wow, okay. Lots of dice.
It sounds like a lot, but it flows pretty well. And what's fascinating here and adds a real layer of suspense is the concept of simultaneous fire.
Simultaneous fire.
Yeah. Any damage from the attack phase isn't actually applied until the cleanup phase, right at the end of the turn.
Ah, so even if my ship gets hammered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even a critically damaged Leviathan can get one last, potentially devastating alpha strike before it technically goes down. It leads to these incredibly tense finales where both players might see their prize ships destroyed in the same turn. It's a real test of nerve and planning ahead.
So even a ship on its last legs can deal a fatal blow. That must create some incredibly cinematic moments. And how is that damage tracked? Is it just hit points or is it more involved?
Oh, it's far more intricate than simple hit points. This adds to that Battletech-like feel, managing a complex war machine. Damage is applied to specific slots within your ship.
Slots. Like what?
Things like engine, armor, the Tesla coil trim tank if you have one, steering gear, gun batteries, torpedo launchers, even crew. Destroying these slots progressively cripples a ship, reduces its speed, its firepower, its maneuverability.
So you're degrading its capabilities.
Precisely. But the most dramatic damage event is breaking the keel.
Ooh, that sounds final.
It often is. If a ship takes enough cumulative damage overall, you have to make a special roll. It uses 2 red d12s effectively. A roll against your ship's breaking point, with modifiers added for all the damaged or destroyed slots it has suffered.
Okay.
If that modified result meets or exceeds the ship's structural integrity value, bam, the ship is just automatically destroyed. Snaps in half, basically.
Whoa.
Imagine dealing critical damage to an opponent, chipping away, and then suddenly their entire ship just breaks apart. It's designed to be this dramatic payoff after a tense engagement. Keeps you on the edge of your seat until the very last die roll.
Wow, that sounds incredibly granular and exciting. And it's not just the big Leviathans slugging it out up there, is it? What about smaller craft, like planes, and any unique tech that spices things up?
You're right, the skies are definitely a busy place. You also have planes, fighters, and bombers. They have their own movement rules and specialized attacks. Fighters can engage in anti-air fire to protect your big ships.
Right, like point defense.
Exactly. While bombers can drop literal bombs on enemy ships, they even have unique abilities like escort, where they can try to redirect damage aimed at a friendly Leviathan onto themselves. Or machine guns to specifically attack a ship's crew slots, simulating strafing runs on the bridge or exposed crew.
Ouch. Nasty.
And yeah, some ships showcase unique national technologies, like the American Edison coil trim tank. It allows an additional turn before moving forward. Little things like that highlight national ingenuity and add another layer of strategic depth to specific fleets.
Okay, so these detailed mechanics, they don't exist in a vacuum, right? They're woven into this rich alternate history that completely reshaped global warfare.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Great Sky Race and how these aerial giants changed everything.
Yeah, it's a truly fascinating alternate timeline. Our sources lay out a Leviathan's timeline starting from 1878 onwards. It details the Great Sky Race that kicked off after the French unveiled the Ganymede and the British showed off the HML Leviathan. This period saw all the major powers constantly trying to out-innovate each other. It led to these fascinating national designs and military doctrines that are directly reflected in the game itself.
So the history isn't just background fluff. It actually influences how the game plays, how the factions feel.
Absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, events like the 1895 Battle of Tsushima, where Russian Berkut-class Leviathans apparently demonstrated total dominance over traditional seabound vessels.
Wow.
Or the 1911 Midnight War, where Japan supposedly used Leviathans as troop transports to conquer Chile in a single night. These events truly show how these sky ships utterly reshaped warfare in this timeline. And what's fascinating is how these events molded the national doctrines and the ship designs you see in the game.
Okay, can you give us some specific examples? How did these nations develop their distinct aerial fleets?
Certainly. Let's take Russia. They were initially the front runner, thanks to Zhukov's discovery. They quickly developed these powerful Cossacks of the sky, like the Alexander, the Vladivostok, Catherine Blot.
Strong names.
Right. Though they apparently struggled with production later on, their veteran crews, forged in battles like Tsushima and Tendra Island, were widely regarded as the best in the world. That made their ships formidable opponents, even if outnumbered sometimes.
Experience counts. What about Britain?
Britain, driven by innovation, produced vessels like the HML Leviathan, what's called a revolution with its massive 12-inch guns. They focused on defensive positioning, as seen in ships like the Connaught, but they also explored specialized destroyers, like the G-class.
G-class.
Yeah, these had mortar-like cannons designed specifically to shoot over clouds, adding this unique vertical element to their tactics.
Clever. So the British were about powerful broadsides, positioning, and even using the environment. What about their rivals, like France?
Exactly. France, fueled by national pride, they boasted a prestigious aviation school. Their ships like the Paris, Conquent, Le Faucon, Grenouille, and especially the Poisson were highly specialized, particularly in torpedo technology.
Ah, torpedoes in the sky.
Yep. The Poisson, for instance, was explicitly designed for high-explosive torpedoes, making it this deadly, close-range threat, a very different style from the British.
Definitely sounds like it. And Germany.
Germany had a bit of a bumpy start. Apparently, Kaiser Wilhelm II famously canceled development after an early crash. Bit of an overreaction, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
But they came back strong, building powerful, often expensive battleships like the Kaiser in Prussia. They also developed incredibly versatile destroyers, like the Falk. The source says it became the most widespread Leviathan in the world.
Wow, the workhorse.
Kind of, yeah. And they famously developed a distaste for torpedoes after some early skirmishes in the Alps. This led to the poorly budgeted but heavily gunned Bremen-class destroyer.
A nation defining its doctrine based on an early skirmish, that's a fantastic little detail. Adds so much flavor. What about other powers like Italy or the US?
Well, Italy apparently integrated Leviathans directly into their existing naval fleets. They used them for large-scale bombardments during the Ottoman-Italian War. Ships like the Mare Nostrum, Gloria Fiume, and Costellazione essentially became mobile siege engines for them.
Makes sense.
And the United States. They were initially slow to adopt, apparently. But later, they were propelled by inventors like Tesla and Edison, focusing heavily on technological innovation. This is exemplified by the state-of-the-art Frontier class, which boasted advanced electrical pulse weapons, and those Edison coil systems we mentioned, allowing unique tactical maneuvers.
So a real battle of engineering and ingenuity playing out on a global scale. Amazing. And how does the environment itself, like clouds, factor into these sky battles?
Oh, that's another tactical layer. The presence of clouds, which can be light or heavy, significantly affects line of sight and also anti-air damage. So this forces commanders to constantly adapt to dynamic weather conditions on the battlefield. It adds an element of unpredictability, creates opportunities for ambushes, or maybe finding cover, or making evasive maneuvers. It's not just a flat hex grid.
So wrapping this all up, what does this all mean? From the arcane science of electroid and the intricate engineering of these soaring hulls to the precise hex-based movement, the multi-layered combat, and this rich alternate history, Leviathans. The Great War truly offers a singular experience, doesn't it?
It really does.
It takes that classic steampunk aesthetic, which is cool in itself, and puts it directly onto a detailed tactical wargame board. It really delivers on that promise of Battletech in the sky.
Yeah, and this raises an important question, right? Why should you, the listener, care? Leviathans isn't just about moving cool miniatures around, though they are cool. It's about mastering complex systems, adapting to an ever-changing aerial battlefield, very much like commanding your own battle mech company, actually. The attention to detail, from weapon ranges and firing arcs to the dramatic effect of a breaking the keel roll, it provides an incredible depth of play. It's a game that really challenges your strategic mind while immersing you in this richly imagined world.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really makes you think, doesn't it? In a world where technology leaps forward like this, what truly determines victory? Is it just raw power, strategic ingenuity, or maybe the adaptability of its commanders to completely new forms of warfare?
Precisely. And you have to wonder, how might the ongoing Great War in this universe further shape the very design and use of these magnificent sky Leviathans? How will they evolve next, pushing the boundaries of what these airships can achieve? That's a fascinating thought.
It really is. Well, that's our deep dive into what makes Leviathans, the Great War, truly unique. We hope you enjoyed this journey into the skies and maybe gained a whole new appreciation for aerial wargaming.
Hope so.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those fascinating questions.